Hello and welcome to Vintage Revival Design Co. This week we're going to do a visual affirmations board using mixed media and paint and metal and transfers and decoupage tissue. I'm working on a 16 by 20 canvas, and my first step is to apply 2 coats of Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel. This color is Raven. It's the most beautiful, dark, almost black blue. And I'm using 1 Hour Enamel because it's very, very friendly to transfers because it cures so quickly. Once that's dry, I'm going to start blending in some other colors. I like to do this technique with a brayer. This color is also a 1 Hour Enamel, and it's in the color of Leatherwood. I will just keep brayering on this color. I love how the brayer works with the texture in the canvas board and just creates this kind of texture that you can't repeat canvas to canvas. Each canvas is very unique and different. My next step then is to add fauna. This is actually a little more of a tan color than it's showing up here, but you can see because some of the leatherwood was still wet that I'm actually getting a third color. And again, the more I add, the more texture that's created, and that's the whole idea. The next step is to choose my papers, and for this kind of technique I love to just go to my scraps. I save all of my scraps of decoupage tissue, and so these happen to be scraps from book pages and from Rocycled decoupage tissue. I believe this is junk journal blocks. You'll see that I'm using a wet cut method. I like the edges that it provides. They're very organic. And next I'm using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel Clear Coat in matte, and I am just kind of getting an idea of the placement of where I want my papers. I'm going to make sure that I can, when I'm finally done, I want to be able to see some of those quotes and the script, and it's just going to add even more texture. So this is a really fun process to play with, and you just want to do something really pleasing to you. I'm really focusing on that right side of my canvas because I know that the paper doll is going to go on the left side. You can put them all in one direction, turning them upside down. I think the more we vary, the more interesting it becomes. And you can, cut as you go along, again, with that wet method. And I'm not only applying them, but I'm sealing them at the same time so that everything is ready to go. Now that my collage papers are down, I'm going to use antique filler, or I'm sorry, this is ivory. And so you'll notice that I've gone from dark to light in my colors. So I just want to cover that up a little bit, but not so much that we can't see some of that text. You'll see that even just the edges of the paper are kind of highlighted as we go through this and run the brayer over it again. My final step is to add antique filler. Again, these are all Wise Owl 1 Hour Enamel paints. Now it's time to use the Rocycled paper doll stencil to create just the parts that I want. I'm using brown paint and I'm outlining the skirt, and then just choosing the parts that I want to use on my project. My paper wasn't really big enough. If you have a larger paper, then it's easier, but I just used 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 chipboard for this. And then again, just using my brown paint, I'm applying it with a makeup brush. It's really smooth and it makes it so much easier to apply. I did do the bodice twice, and I'll show you why. Once all of the pieces that I want to use are stenciled and it's dry, I'm going to cut out all of the pieces. It's good. This is a lot of fussy cutting, but it's totally worth it. Now I know that I'm going to do something different with her skirt, so I am using Wise-Al's 1 Hour Enamel in Fauna just to base coat her skirt in case I want to decoupage her. The paper will pop, but I know I'm going to be adding transfers. And I've chosen this beautiful, this is a new release by IOD, it's the Botanist transfer. It's really meant for large scale furniture, but I love these beautiful, delicate floral images. And so I've cut out several of those from one sheet of the transfer. I decided that I wanted to give her a grain sack shirt, so I had a scrap of fabric, and I'm using just a clear, I think it's a Lean's clear tacky gel adhesive to apply the fabric to the skirt. And then I'm going to cut that out, and I'll go ahead and trim any loose threads or something like that. But I'm going to cut this out, and then it'll be ready to apply to the bodice that has the neck and her face. Now it's time. I'm going to work on the skirt. I decided to use a scrap of my paper from the floral burlap decoupage tissue just to give it a base underneath the floral transfers. And I'll fill in those sides with the transfers. So rather than sand, I'm just going to trim the paper here. And now I'm going to take those floral transfers and just kind of play a little bit with how I think I want the design to go, and then I'll be able to piece these together. So I'm going to learn just lay down the main piece and then work from there. Those flowers are just so pretty and delicate, and they look great with that paper. And so now I'll just go ahead and finish doing that, just getting those flowers the way I want. Now I'm taking my 1 Hour Enamel clear coat, and I'm just going around the edges of the fabric shirt so that the fabric doesn't fray. And I do this before I ink the edges with Stays On ink in Timber Brown. And now that the shirt is complete and it's inked, I'm going to adhere it to the bodice of the paper doll. Again, this is the clear tacky gel. And now her shirt is ready, and I'm going to attach the two together. I'll trim the hips or something like that if it's a little wider, but now we're good. So now I'm going to put the arms together, and I'm doing this, I wanted the arms to move, and so I used an awl to punch holes at the joints, and here I'm just trimming off where the ink was just a little thick. Using really small metal brads, I am attaching the arms, and that allows them to move but be completely secure. And so I'll do this at 3 points, and then also I'm going to do the shoulders, but I'm going to do that other arm first. And then when the arms are all together, it'll be time to attach them at the shoulder. Again, I'm going to be using the same process, just punching a hole with the awl and using a small metal brad to attach her arms to the shoulders. I'm going to ink up her skirt just for definition. It really helps it pop against the light background. I chose several, affirmation words, and I stamped them on different colors of ribbon. The lightest color that you see is just twill tape, and I get that in a roll. And then I had some ribbon, and I turned it backwards so that I could use that. I wanted to add some texture, and so this is really just it's a shelf liner that I got at the Dollar Tree, and it comes in a big roll. And I rolled some navy blue paint that I mixed up, and I love the texture that it creates, and it was so inexpensive. It's a great tool to have. Again, it was just like $1.25, and I've got tons and tons and tons of sheets of this because I cut it up, and so you don't have to feel bad about rolling it up, and you can throw these pieces away if you like or save them. I wanted to give kind of a frame for my ribbon words, and so then I decided, well, if color is good in one area, let's add it, in some other places. So I just randomly added this color around my canvas, and I love the extra pop of color that it gives. Here I'm attaching a metal ribbon slide to each of my ribbons, and then just gluing the excess to the back for stability. And I am going to do this with each of my ribbon words. I'll then use that tacky glue right there. So I've secured that. And I've got all 5 of those, and I'm using a peel and stick double-sided adhesive to attach my ribbons to my canvas board. I decided to stagger them and also alternate the color of my ribbons. Now, I want to tell you, this stuff is sticky, and it can be a little tricky to work with because it wants to stick to your fingers and your scissors and everything, but it is super strong and it's permanent. Once all my ribbons were in place, it was time now. I felt like I could go ahead and attach my paper doll to my canvas board. And so I'm using that same double-sided adhesive and just making sure that I'm paying attention to the edges and little places where it might naturally lift up, little pieces here and there. So you can trim it to size. And then I know she's going to be very secure. I'm being very careful though not to apply adhesive to her arms or her shoulders because again, I want those to be able to move. I'm going to put her in place. And now we're going to work on her crown. I decided, even though the stencil has a crown, I just thought I would repeat the floral theme and give her, I don't know, flower hair or a floral crown, whatever you want to call it. And I chose many of the blue elements from the transfers that I cut out, and I just kept piecing little bits until I liked how it looked. You can layer these transfers, and I think that's really the beauty of them. There was a little bit also of a bead. That transfer has a frame, and there was a little bit of beading in that frame, and I ended up cutting some of that off, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. I went ahead and just completed her hair, and then I cut out some of the beading, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a flower coming down on onto her forehead before I place what I'm calling her headband. You can see how that little beading just defines. It does look like a crown or a hat or something like that, and I just love it. Once that was done, I really liked that beading, and so I took a little bit more, cut it a little bit wider, and I added that as kind of a belt or a transition between her shirt and the skirt. And I thought that was a nice detail. Even though most of it's going to be hidden because her hands will be holding something, I also used that beading eventually to give her a little necklace and some earrings. For her waist, I chose a metal charm, and I went ahead and adhered that to her skirt, and then her hands hold that. My final step with this was to use just a fine black marker, and I wanted her flowers to pop more. So I drew lines around, just very light, not solid, just very loose lines around the areas that I wanted more definition. So that was her floral crown, my ribbon words. I eventually even went to the flowers in her skirt, and I felt like that really made them more of a focal point in the project. Now that this is done, I'm so happy with this visual affirmation board, and I hope that this will inspire you to try something like this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.